Okay, what's up, guys? So something I wanted to talk about. I made a post the other day, and it was kind of talking about there's a local school in the area, and some guy was like, "Oh, I've trained jujitsu since I was 8 years old." Some guy was like recommending him to train jujitsu because he was showing some self defense techniques that were pretty crazy. Anyways, so what happened was the guy went and somebody was like, "Hey, you should try jujitsu. You try Brazilian jiu-jitsu, man. It's I think you'd really like it." And the guy's response was, "I've been doing jiu-jitsu since I was 8 years old." Now keep in mind that this dude looked like he had to be like probably close to his 40s. So that's a long time to be doing jiu-jitsu. But he said, "I've been doing jiu-jitsu since I was 8 years old. Unfortunately, jiu-jitsu has left its roots of self-defense and has now taken the path of sport. The stuff that we teach is good for law enforcement," and started going on and yada 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 that about how his stuff is more legitimate and all this kind of stuff. And I tell you what, like it's hard if you're gonna teach Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The idea behind Brazilian jiu-jitsu is leverage, technique first, leverage over brute strength. Instead of going out there and just, oh, I'm just gonna. Somebody has me in a headlock. Like, dude had him in a headlock, and he like punched his heart, and like one arm body folded him, and the guy just fell. I was like, what the hell was that, dude? Like, that's not effective. From the guard, the guy had his hand around. He was like, if I just grab the wrist and I just like palm strike the elbow, I'm not. But the guy was like, how you break the arm, how you deal with somebody in the guard choking you, is you just hold the wrist and just palm strike the elbow, and apparently that just shatters the elbow and breaks it. But anyways, so what I want to show you guys here is exactly what I was talking about in one of the posts I made. What is ruining the art of jiu-jitsu? So what it is, I made up a little picture for you guys. Should have done it in like a slideshow, but whatever. I'm just going to kind of go from here. You guys can see it. So what you guys see here, you guys should be able to see my mouse on the screen. Yep. So what you guys see here is BJJ. This is the jiu-jitsu community. We're teaching our thing, whatever. There's three main things that I feel that are ruining the jiu-jitsu community. A, early belt promotions. Early promotions, promoting students when they're not ready. Promoting students too early when they're not ready. Second thing, not teaching or ever talking about self-defense. Again, not teaching or ever talking about self-defense. And then number three, not evolving the art. Not evolving the art. Let me repeat that again. Not evolving the art. There's three things. Early belt promotions, not teaching self-defense or even talking about it, and then not trying to evolve the art itself. At the end of the day, jiu-jitsu, what is the number one reason why people got started in jiu-jitsu? They saw Royce Gracie do his thing in the UFC. They watched Damian Maia. They're watching Damian Maia as of right now use jiu-jitsu in the UFC or some other top competitor. They have a friend who does jiu-jitsu, and it sparks curiosity of, holy shit, what the fuck, this is effective. Dude, you can whoop my ass. It sparks curiosity for self-defense. Not too many people, I truly believe not too many people get into the art because they want to be like, I want to know how to protect myself and do this. I don't think that's really the case anymore. I don't think with our day and age and here in America, I think people are more likely, which is sad, people are more likely to sue you rather than learn how to defend themselves, unfortunately. But let's talk about this. So the curiosity sparks with the self-defense. Okay, how do you convince a karate guy, a taekwondo guy, a kung fu guy, a Krav Maga guy that jiu-jitsu is better for them? How do you convince them? You talk self-defense, right? You have to talk self-defense. How do you convert one of them over to train with you? You have to talk self-defense. You have to talk about punch defense. You have to talk about front choke defense. You have to talk about gun defense. You have to talk about self-defense, okay? How do you, when somebody new comes into the academy and they learn all these moves, like let's say a woman came in because she was assaulted, and that woman wants to learn self-defense. What's the first thing that you teach her? Hopefully it's a mount escape at least, but do you teach her a guard pass? Do you teach her De La Hiva? Do you teach her sputter guard? Or would you teach her how to stand in base and maybe a punch defense or a front choke defense or a bear hug defense, something along that nature, how to get to your feet from the guard? Because she's going to benefit more from that. That's interest. That's what she's there for. I don't think people stay in jiu-jitsu for the self-defense so much. I think people stay for it because it's fun and just the art itself, not just the sport. Not just the self-defense, but the art. I think people are in it for the art. People are in it because, like I said, curiosity. Oh man, it's your first thing you do when you get into jiu-jitsu is you're like, okay, well, how do I learn how to defend myself? How to get out of a headlock? How to defend myself against a punch? And then as time goes on, you're like, okay, well, how do I pass this guy's guard? How do I sweep this guy? How do I do that? And then you start learning what people call is the sport side. And I don't like comparing the two, sport, self-defense, because I think they're very similar, but they're also different at the same time. At the end of the day, an armbar is an armbar, but if you don't talk about the mindset of self-defense, it ruins the art. So let's talk about these three things before I get so sidetracked. Early promotions. Talk about that first. Here's jiu-jitsu. Promoting too early, loyalty belts. Loyalty belts. What is a loyalty belt? If you don't know, a loyalty belt is when somebody is promoting you just pretty much for your loyalty. They're like, oh, this guy's been around a while. He's supported the academy. He's bought a lot of private lessons from me. He deserves to be promoted. This student's been training for 4 years, 5 years. He deserves to be promoted. Even though he sucks, he deserves to be promoted. This is bad because this creates a non-legitimate student. I should put that here. And it also creates unqualified instructors. There's plenty of black belts out there, good black belts, that are doing affiliations, and they're giving black belts to other students that are terrible, that know nothing. Good black belts, giving black belts to people that don't deserve black belts. And then those people that don't deserve black belts are in this unqualified instructor, are now opening academies, and they're teaching jiu-jitsu. That's terrible. Well, that starts to create even worse students and even worse unqualified instructors. We'll talk about this in a second. But it creates even worse stuff. So now you're just starting to get really messed up, watered down jiu-jitsu. It's terrible. The good thing with this is it makes the legit schools look really good. That's the good thing. It makes the legit schools look really good. But this ruins it. Next thing, not teaching or talking about self-defense. We're going to come down here, right here. Jiu-jitsu, not teaching or talking about self-defense, creates sports students and academies. That's fine. That's fine. I have no issues with that. I love like I said, sport. I don't like saying sport. I'd rather say the art, but the art is the complete package. The sport is just one side of the package. The self-defense is just one side. I think it's bad to only teach just the self-defense side, and I think it's bad to only teach just the sport side. You need to teach it all. And now here's my reasoning. So when you create just sports students, that's fine. But if you are a blue belt and you have never learned, and we're going to type this stuff in here so that way you guys got it. If you're a blue belt and you have never learned punch defense, headlock defense, bear hug, front and rear over the arm bear hug. Let's talk about that, okay? We don't even have to get into weapon defense yet, but I'm going to put that there. Any kind of weapon retention / defense, okay? That's jiu-jitsu too, guys. That is part of jiu-jitsu. A lot of people don't think it is, but that is part of jiu-jitsu. Okay, bear hug, headlock, punch defense. These are basic little things I'm going to talk about. Dealing with the push, right? I mean, I could think of a lot of other things. You got multiple different headlock defenses. These are just simple things that I think are important. Oh, here we go. Standing from the guard. Not on the bottom, guys, but on bottom. How to get to your feet from your back. How to get to your feet from your back. How to stand in base from the guard and be safe from punches. Punch defense from the guard. From guard as well. Don't forget that. Let's also talk about the differences between a street fight and mat fight. We're just gonna call it mat fight. Difference between those. If you haven't learned any of these at a blue belt, you're training sport, and that's fine if that's what you want. But you should not be teaching jiu-jitsu, and that academy, if they're teaching that, they should not be teaching at the academy. If you're going to be a sports school, if you're not teaching this stuff, if you're an instructor, like I said, I do not I don't hold interest in, okay, I hold interest. My priority for training is not the self-defense. I train just for the therapeutic reasons. I train because it's fun. I train because of the camaraderie. They get to meet people. It's fun. It helps me deal with depression. But when it comes down to this, like the self-defense, why do I train for self-defense? Because I know it's my duty as an instructor to ensure that the lady that comes in that was sexually assaulted and wants to learn self-defense, that she's learning proper self-defense. The police officer that comes in and wants to learn self-defense, how to be safe, that they're learning self-defense. The military personnel that's coming in and wanting to learn self-defense, that they're learning self-defense. The old man that's coming in that just wants to learn self-defense, He gets to learn self-defense. Or just the 20-year-old that's coming in that, hey, I walk to school and I'm in a bad neighborhood. I'd like to learn self-defense. I'm being, I want to know. Or children that are being bullied when they're, from age 5 and up. You guys are all in school. I'm sure you all have been bullied at one time. They're going to need to learn self-defense. Well, these are common scenarios of somebody who's never trained before, and that's what they're going to do to you. Okay, you're not going to get into a fight and the guy's going to hit a blast single leg. I mean, he very well could. So you need to learn how to defend it. We'll talk about that on evolving the art in just a bit. But as you go into the sports school here, if you are a sports school not teaching any of this, you are not allowed to advertise. You should not be advertising that you teach self-defense, because you no longer teach self-defense. You should be advertising we are a competition school or we are a sports school. Okay. Now, if you are teaching self-defense and you prioritize on competition, you are fine. You are perfect. You are doing nothing wrong. In fact, I think you are amazing for the art. I think you are amazing for the art, because I think more people will stay with you if you're teaching self-defense in the beginning. They're learning the basics, punch defense, headlock defense, and then you go to a competition and you're killing it in competition, then you're okay. You are fine with the art. But if you're not, if you're only teaching this, it ruins it, because what's going to happen? We'll get to this in a second. Next one, not evolving the art. If you come in training jiu-jitsu and you're only, this is what I think is, what I mean by not evolving the art is sometimes people who teach purely the self-defense side, like they just teach this stuff and they never learn how to guard pass. They never learn how to do other sweeps from the guard, like what is De La Hiva, overhead sweeps, what are these leg locks, and what is just what people would say is a sport type techniques. Again, I like to say art, but the sport type techniques. If you're not learning all that extra stuff, you're learning a non-effective art. It's not effective. It's not effective, dude. You might as well be learning like ninjutsu or some other kind of bullshit like that. Because what's going to happen is you're doing katas. You're practicing moves against people that, like, how many times are you actually going to have somebody legitimately try to punch you? It's like, how many times are you going to have somebody really try to headlock you? I mean, realistically try to headlock you and bear hug, or really pull a knife and try to stab you. It's hard to really practice these things. You practice them as realistic as you possibly can, because that's all you can do. But it's not going to be nearly as realistic as we go to the sport guys as somebody trying to rip your arm off, or somebody really trying to hold you down the mountain when you can get out. When somebody's legitimately trying to hold you down the mountain and knows how to hold you down the mountain, if you can escape a sport jiu-jitsu guy's mount, you're going to escape a non-jiu-jitsu guy's mount easily. But when we start talking about punches involved, you may have a little bit more difficulty, because you may have a tendency to go to a position that is not good for self-defense. You may have more of an excitement to go to the ground when that's a scenario where you should not be going to the ground. You're going to be worrying more about posture control and not about hand control sometimes. And next thing you know, the guy pulls a knife out, or scissors, or a pen, or a pencil, or keys, and he stabs you. And then you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that you could stab me. Or the person starts biting you. Like, it's different. Like, it is different, but it's the same, but it is different. So what these three start to teach, early belt promotions, not teaching self-defense, not evolving the art, this creates people experiencing what the art is, but not what it's being advertised as. So they're experiencing what they're teaching in the art. So somebody who's a non-qualified instructor is thinking they're trained jiu-jitsu, and let's just say an athletic wrestler comes in. Well, these guys are getting worse and worse and worse. They're going to come in, they're going to freaking wreck these guys. These guys down here, not evolving the art, that athletic wrestler, going to wreck these guys. He's going to stomp them. You get that athletic wrestler, he's going to get beat by the sport guys. So he's going to probably tend to go down this middle path and do his thing. But the problem is he's going to open a school, because he's going to be good at jiu-jitsu at the sports side of it. And more of these are going to start to be built. Now you take the police officer. He's going to come in here. He's going to learn from unqualified instructor, even worse, unqualified instructors. And he's learning a false art, which may and could eventually get this guy killed, if not somebody else killed. Okay, so now he's not learning proper jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu down here, not evolving the art. Again, somebody comes in, it's false confidence. He truly believes that he knows how to defend himself because he's drilling self-defense type techniques, but he's not actually learning how to actually apply it realistically, or not learning how to evolve. And we'll talk more about this in a second. And then it's a non-effective art. And now he's more likely to try to defend himself rather than run away, and then he's going to die, or he's going to get hurt, or somebody else is going to get hurt. And what does this do? So how does the sport benefit self-defense, and how does the self-defense benefit the sport? So the sport benefits self-defense. Okay, so the self-defense benefits sport like this. self-defense, or I'm sorry, sport benefits self-defense. But getting all just combobulated. Sport benefits self-defense because what the sport does is it teaches you creativity. The sport teaches you new and improved details and techniques in order to control somebody. For example, there's a lot of techniques that you will use that are sport-like techniques from the mount that are just going to help you be able to hold the mount a little bit better. And to mention, more and more people are training jiu-jitsu, so it's starting to become more and more common, still very, very uncommon, but it's starting to become more and more common that you may have to defend yourself against a trained opponent. So, with that being said, is the sport is just teaching you creativity and more details and more techniques and just more ways to contort the body to your liking, okay? So if you have self-defense, if you have self-defense mindset, you understand the differences between a mat fight and a street fight, you understand the differences there, you can add sport to it, man. Okay, we're both at self-defense, now I have sport. Guess what? Sport guy's going to win. Sport guy's going to win that fight 9 times out of 10. But now if you just take, I'm just training self-defense, and I'm going against you as a sport guy, well, depends on what kind of guy we're talking about. If he's an athletic sport guy, if you're an athletic sport guy and you're winning tournaments, bro, nobody's going to put you in a headlock. You're too athletic, you're too strong, nobody's going to get you there. Nobody's going to put you a bear hug. Nobody's probably going to do any of that stuff. But that 100-pound female that's training under you is going to be. That unathletic 20-year-old is going to be. The student that has autism that's in class, he needs the self-defense because he's more likely to be bullied in school, and he's going to need to know how to defend himself from a punch, from a kick, from a bear hug, from a headlock, from a standing guillotine, from a standing rear choke, from a baseball bat swing. Those are common scenarios that's going to happen. But how does self-defense benefit sport? How does self-defense benefit sport? The growth of the art. That's like the main thing. And it makes you safe. But it's like the growth of the art's the main thing. First off, the self-defense is easy to train. It's easy to train. It's very simple. Right? There's a lot to it. It's very complex as you start getting into it, especially when you get into the weapon retention. But the basic punch defense, headlock defense, bear hug, push, all that kind of stuff, like those are simple techniques. Those are techniques that you should be like you should get at your second stripe for your white belt. That's like how simple these techniques are. But as you start going on, if you're learning these techniques at purple belt, man, you're far behind the curve. I don't know if this makes sense. Hopefully it does. I'm terrible at explaining things, but sometimes I'm pretty good at it. But usually I'm pretty terrible. But what I'm saying is, if you're doing loyalty belts and giving belts out to people, like, that's bad. And people that are like, oh well, I don't care about self-defense, or some people are like, well, why do you defend the art? Why are you defend? Who cares about it? Like, who cares? Let them do what they want. It's like, because this is what happens: is somebody comes into this academy. Somebody comes into this academy. Somebody comes into this academy. If they come into this academy, and let's say somebody comes in and like, dude, these techniques are not real. Like, I'm trying them, they don't work. Well, guess what? That creates one student now that is now talking about jiu-jitsu not being effective because I learned it from an unqualified instructor. That's going to lead to 2, it's only 3, 4. Let's just add a couple there, okay? So now we got some students talking about it. Then we come down here. Sports students, okay? But it's not teaching self-defense. The self-defense is not being taught there. I never learned how to punch myself, how to do a punch defense. Never learned a kick defense. I never learned a bear hug defense, a headlock defense. I got beat up in a street fight. Well, guess what? More people over here saying jiu-jitsu is not effective in self-defense, which is what that post is, what I shared, by the way, in case you guys didn't know. And then you come down here, not effective art. Well, let's say the athletic strong guy comes in, or the 300-pound guy who's just big, and let's say the majority of the school is about 170 and below, and they can't control them, the 300-pound guy. I tell you, I'm 160 pounds, and if you've never trained jiu-jitsu before, and you're 300 pounds, I'm going to flip you around like a rag doll. And if you come in here to my academy, I don't say my academy, but the academy that I train at, if you come into the academy I train at, you're going to learn real jiu-jitsu. You're going to learn self-defense, you're going to learn sport, you're going to learn everything. You're going to learn spider guard, you're going to learn X guard, you're going to learn D-path, you're going to learn butterfly guard, you're also going to learn weapon defense, you're also going to learn weapon retention, you're going to learn punch defense. You're going to learn it all at my academy, because this is what we believe in the art, is sharing everything. Now, over here, what this happens, you got that 300-pound guy, you got the athletic guy comes in. Well, guess what? That's more people talking about the legitimacy of jiu-jitsu in a false way. These people do not believe the art. They're not believing it right now. These people are like, man, this guy taught some crazy sweep and like it doesn't work because the guy's teaching fake techniques or he's not teaching the right details. Man, these guys don't teach self-defense. This is unreal. Like, jiu-jitsu is not real for self-defense. That's more people running their mouth about self-defense. about the art not being legit. Man, these guys, I went in there, they had their black belt, I tapped their black belt, I'm a white belt. That's more people running their mouth. And all this starts to do, guys, is just create more and more people running their mouth. And you know what that does? You know what that does? This right over here. This creates a giant pool of people. This is the community that we all, as sport and self-defense students, are advertising to. These are the people that we want training with us. Well, let's say little Jimmy has a brother, or Big Jimmy has a brother, and brother named Eric, and this is Eric right here, and he's running his mouth to Jimmy. Well, guess where Jimmy's probably going to go next? Jimmy's going to end up over here, not believing the art. Okay, so that's X'd out. We don't need Jimmy anymore. And you guys, a couple more people. Guess what? All these people are going to eventually go right over here. You're going to go right there. That person's going to go right there. That person's going to go right there. They're going to get into this non-belief thing because these people are talking, though they never experienced this. They never experienced real jiu-jitsu. They never experienced real jiu-jitsu. Self-defense, sport. Both. They never experienced real jiu-jitsu. So these people, when you look at how many people train jiu-jitsu, it's less than 1% of the population. And we're trying to advertise to over 99% of the population, and we can't even advertise these guys. You know why we can't advertise these guys? Because these guys are running their mouth. You know why we can't? You know why these guys are running their mouth? Because this is happening. You know why this is happening? Is because people are allowing it. You know why people are allowing it? Because nobody, not enough people are speaking up at the end of the day. Not enough people are speaking up. Right here. You guys speak up. Hey, little team instructor, man. Why are you giving that belt to that student? Hey, wake up. Hey, you're not teaching self-defense, man. Well, you have a police officer training with you, but he never learned how to take a gun away. He never learned how to defend himself from a baseball bat. He never learned how to defend himself from a punch. How do you not know how to defend yourself from a punch? Why are you not teaching that in jiu-jitsu? Not involving the art. Well, you're not teaching your guys how to pass the guard, or how to hold the mount, or how to do, you know, a different type of armbar. With the more types of armbars you know, the better you're going to be at armbarring people. When you talk just to self-defense, not involving the art, if you're not, so is an armbar escape, let's talk about this. Is an armbar escape self-defense or sport? What would you think? What would you think? I think it's the art. But would you say it's self-defense? Not really. You could make the argument, sure, but technically it's not really self-defense, because it's like, what are the chances that an untrained opponent's going to put you in an armbar? It's never going to fucking happen. But you should still learn your armbar escapes. You know why you learn your armbar escapes? You learn your armbar escapes because it's going to make you better at the armbar. Okay, it's going to make you better understand the armbar when you learn your armbar escapes. You learn how to pass the guard because it's going to make you better at understanding how to pass the guard. And it's going to make your students safer, so it's not white belt fury when they pass the guard. I can't tell you how many times I've seen blue belts and purple belts try to pass somebody's guard and they don't know how to pass and they flop around. I'm like, oh man, you're going to hurt somebody, dude. Here, let me show you how to pass the guard properly. And then they're safe. Do you need to pass the guard in a street fight? Hell no. The guy doesn't have a guard. You know, walk around that thing, you throw his legs to the side, boop, bye. You go around that. But if you try to approach a self-defense guard with your head down, you're going to be missing teeth. If you try to posture in the guard, you're going to get punched or kicked, right? So in the guard, in self-defense, you do not posture. You put your head down. You bury your head in the chest and you block the punches. You do a little punch block defense. If you are posturing if you are blocking punches and keeping your head down in sport, you will never pass somebody's guard. You'll never be able to pass somebody's guard unless that guy just opens his legs just like crazy. You're not going to pass his guard. You have to posture in order to pass the guard. So hopefully this helps. I don't know how long this video is. Guys, I'm not out here targeting people. I'm just trying to shed some light and awareness on something that I notice and something that I truly believe in. At the end of the day, I train more for the art itself. Okay, sport and self-defense. I train more for the art. I just like learning how to contort people's bodies. That makes me excited. That's cool shit, right? But I understand the importance behind self-defense. It's extremely important to make sure that it is taught. It's going to continue with our legacy of jiu-jitsu. It's going to continue with the growth. More and more people are going to get into it because so. You don't want people getting into jiu-jitsu and being watered down like karate has gone, like Taekwondo has gone down the path where they stop teaching some of the self-defense side. It loses its effectiveness, and then everything's watered down. And now people are going and learning karate. And you know why people go learn karate? Not because it's effective in fighting. They learn karate because it teaches kids discipline. So they're paying for a babysitter. if you think about it. Or the paying for a parent. I don't know. I mean, at least go to a jiu-jitsu academy where your child is going to learn self-defense, discipline. It's going to gain confidence because they're learning. They're competing. Competing in jiu-jitsu is going to build your confidence. It's going to make you a tougher human being, mentally tough. It's going to let you learn a lot about yourself. It's going to give you more of a realistic approach to what a real fight's going to be. Unless you're fighting MMA, that's the closest you're going to get to it. Like, you know, but how many people out there fighting MMA? You know what I mean? So, early belt promotions, not teaching, talking about self-defense, not evolving the art. Guys, please, if you teach jiu-jitsu, at least at a minimum, talk about the differences of self-defense. Hey, if this guy's a friend, you need to learn to get to your feet. Do you know how to get to your feet from the guard? Because you don't just stand up. Hopefully this helps, guys. See you.